All right. Speaking of unpleasantness, Jeff, you broke a story on Wednesday about 4 New Orleans basketball players. And listen, New Orleans is not a team we're talking about for the NCAA tournament, but I have a feeling we're going to be talking more about these types of teams. Yeah. So 4/5 of their starting lineup has been out since late January because of a gambling investigation.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say this is rare and going to be rare, but I don't think it is. So the school is investigating. NCAA is investigating. These guys have not played since then, may not play the rest of the season. You know, a lot of times when this happens, the staff doesn't even know really what's going on. You know, basically they're just told, hey, there were some, abnormalities here within this game, and you might want to just shut these kids down just so we can further investigate. So that's kind of where it is right now. But it's alarming because, I think, again, this is going to permeate college athletics even more unless something happens. And Charlie Baker has made it clear, like, he wants to get rid of, like, the prop bets and some of these other things because, as we saw even in the NBA with Jonte Porter, it's fairly easy to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Like, you got to be kind of dumb to screw this thing up because there's so many different places you can spread your money around. It's not like you're just going up to a book in Vegas anymore.
Yeah.
That's the difference. So I worry because especially the guys at the lower level who don't get NIL or much NIL, these big-time gamblers and bookies and whatnot, they can get to these kids. And one of the common ones that they can get them with right now is these first half unders is something that they can do because, they could tell them, hey, it's not really going to affect the outcome of the game. You can miss.
You can still try to win in the second half.
Right. You can miss some shots. Hey, you get 4 guys, 4/5. And again, they're not proven guilty yet. They're just being investigated. But you can get 4/5 of the starting lineup to miss shots in the first half. You're in pretty good for the under.
Yeah. And also, too, like, when do you shoot it?
Right.
And the shot clock and stuff. That's interesting. It's just like, and it's like, that's the thing that is so fascinating because I think when people view gambling, they think, it's like, well, I'm betting on Alabama football. And it's like, there are so many lower tier college basketball games out there with kids who aren't famous, who are easily accessible. And that's a reality of it. And when you think about the amount of money that's at stake in some of these books, like, I mean, I look through it, I'll see like colleges I've never even heard of before on my page, like, it could happen.
Yep.
It does happen.
And the kids are gambling too. The kids are already gambling on other sports. And I say this all the time, my nephews are in their 20s, whatever, kids that I play ball with, softball with, they're in their 20s, and I see how they gamble now. And I'm like, man, these guys are gambling on everything. And I worry about them because they don't have that money yet. They're in their mid 20s. I'm like, like to me, I'm gambling on football, whatever, but I'm making decent money at this point in my life where I can. But these guys, you worry about them as college basketball, football players, even if they're not betting on their sport or their team at that point, that they get in too deep. And then what do you do if somebody comes out?
So do we know yet if this is part of the bigger, because there's a big investigation with the Jonte Porter thing that dips into college, and you've had Eastern Michigan, North Carolina A&T, and Mississippi Valley State, I think Sports Illustrated reported that they're getting looked at. You had the Temple UAB game last year that everybody, I mean, Vegas or US Integrity flagged it right after the game. Like,
yeah, I don't know if this one, they don't know yet whether this one is involved. Again, it's fairly recent. We're talking about a month old at this point, but there was a lot of speculation even earlier this year that there were going to be like 10, low major teams that the FBI was looking into. Nothing, big has come out yet, but I do worry that this is only going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah. And like, I hate to say it, but people can probably bet on their own games. They have a friend that opens an account.
And, sure. I mean, what about the kids? Again, the kids that are rooming with other players or other regular students who know all the injury information of the team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many ways now. And that's the one thing that the accessibility of legalized gambling has created right now. And it is worrisome for a lot of reasons.
So let us move from that to the wider world of college basketball, because Ari and I talked about this on the show. We were talking about the other day, the love for SEC basketball right now sounds like what SEC football used to say about itself all the time for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, how good is the league this year? Because I've heard Jay Billis say deepest league since the ACC of the mid 80s. I mean, is this hyperbolic, or is it really that good?
Well, I mean, the top of it is really, really good. Now, if you look at it, and I saw Oklahoma earlier this year, they've kind of come down to earth. South Carolina's not very good. LSU's not very good. Texas, Georgia, Vandy's done well. Some of these schools in basketball, college basketball, your resume is built as a league in November and December, right? And some of these schools did very well. Oklahoma, Georgia, Vandy. Some of these schools did very well early on. Kentucky even. I mean, they crushed it early, right? I mean, they beat Duke. They beat Gonzaga. They had some, I don't want to say fluky wins, but they end up winning some close games. So I think the bottom is much better than maybe it actually is right now because of some wins early on. But the top, man, the Auburns and Florida and Alabama, those are all – I mean, if you told me right now you could have 5 schools to win the whole thing and you're putting your house on 5 schools, it would be – some version of Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Duke, and I don't even know the 5th right now. But those 3 would be in my top 5.
And Duke and the ACC, that's the other part of this is, when the ACC expanded, you thought, oh, this would be a super conference in basketball. And like Louisville's actually good again. But the league itself is down, like North Carolina, NC State. None of those seem to be kind of holding up the end of the bargain.
Yeah, part of it's coaches, part of it's resources, right? I mean, we know even with football, SEC, Big Ten have the resources right now. So they're going to be good every year. ACC, not as much in terms of resources. And also, a lot of those coaches, frankly, Hubert Davis hasn't really consistently delivered. We saw Tony Bennett leave the league, and be done and just retire. And that really hurts a school like Virginia. Wake Forest, Steve Forbes hasn't been able to get them going. NC State had the run, but they've been, fairly mediocre. Syracuse has been down for years now at the end of the Boeheim regime and then the start of the Red Autry era. So BC stinks. Georgia Tech hasn't been very good. Miami is that really bad this year, where they have been good in the last few years. So there's a reason for it. Where give Mike Slav a lot of credit, because Mike Slav started all this for the SEC. I remember
years ago, brought in Mike Tranghese to yell at the coaches.
Yes. Like I remember Billy Donovan saying, telling me, he's like, "Man, Slav's on me," because Billy played a weak non-conference schedule there.
Oh yeah,
really bad. Playing teams
I had to cover some of those games.
They're awful, right? Right, Andy? They were awful.
Yeah.
And I remember him complaining to me. He's like, yeah, Slav's yelling at me. He's saying that we're kind of the premier program right now in the SEC, and we got to step up our non-conference. And I'm like, Billy, he's right. He's right. You just won 2 national titles. Like, come on, man, step it up.
Let's talk about our friends at Panini America. Go to paniniamerica.net. Start collecting your favorite college and NFL stars, and also college basketball and NBA stars. In honor of Jeff coming on and talking hoops, we're going to open a pack of Prism Draft Picks Basketball Edition, which means there is a possibility of a Caitlin Clark autograph in this pack. If we get a Caitlin Clark autograph, we are in very good shape.
Caitlin Clark autograph, I'm going to come to your house and rob it.
Oh, I know. I'm aware. All right. We got an AJ Johnson. We got a James Harden as an Arizona State Sun Devil. I actually saw him in the NCAA tournament. He was fun to watch in college.
Got a silver prism there, pal.
That's right. Chris Paul as a Wake Forest Demon Deacon. Ariel Hukporti. Hunter Dickinson, who we're going to talk to Jeff Goodman about as a rated prospect. Hunter Dickinson plays for Kansas, used to play for Michigan. Zach Edey.
Where's he these
played for
days?
Purdue. He's a Memphis Grizzly.
Is he having a good year?
Actually
That
playing
guy was
pretty
awesome.
well. Yeah, he's playing pretty well. Donovan Clingan from UConn, from the national title team at UConn. We got a Keyshawn George autograph. Camila Cardozo was an awesome South Carolina player. She's in the WNBA now. And Stephon Castle, another one of those UConn guys who was spectacular for Danny Hurley. So we did not get our Caitlin Clark autograph, but we're hanging in. We're hanging in. So you mentioned Hubert Davis. I'm curious. So the news this week was Hubert Davis signed an extension and he agreed to it last July, but nobody knew about it till this week. Was the revelation of that to tell everybody, hey, he's going to be back next year, or does that not matter in terms of any decision that North Carolina's got to make?
Yeah, I mean, I think the word that I had gotten all year is he's going to get one more year, no matter what. He's one of their own, unless he decides to step down. He's going to get one more opportunity. If you think about it, obviously, year one, they were average up until the final month of the year, and then they go on some crazy run to the national title game. Year two, they're terrible. Last year, they were phenomenal. Won the ACC regular season title, went to the Sweet 16 and got bounced. And this year, they've been not very good again. So 3 out of the 4 years, as of this time of year, as of February, whatever we are, 26, he was either on the bubble or out of the tournament. That's not good enough for Carolina. It's not good enough. Now, again, the buyout will be critical for next year, but probably not, because ultimately, if you're Bubba Cunningham, you're saying, like, all right, next year's the year. Either you turn it or you don't. We're going to give you a chief of staff, a GM, Jim Tanner, a former NBA agent, and we're going to bring back Buzz Peterson, who is part of the family and has been with the Charlotte Hornet with Michael Jordan in the NBA, and he'll help out as well. I feel like part of the problem with Carolina has always been they're so set in their ways and so late to adapt. And I feel like that's the case with NIL too. Now, Hubert hasn't been late with the portal. He actually has changed. He's hit the portal where Roy never did. Roy's biggest thing to me always was like, we never have people transferring. And he was right. Part of the reason why he got out when he did. Hubert has done that and gone small, but they're still slow to adapt in their ways of just like paying fair market value for bigs for the NIL. They don't want to do that.
Whereas Duke has no problem doing that.
No problem. Young, even Kay was very adaptable at the end.
Yeah.
Right? He listened to people. He adapted in his coaching style. He adapted in taking some transfers. And, man, this team with 3 freshmen in the starting lineup, they are so much fun to watch.
So you have a Pac-12 history and a daughter who went to Indiana.
Yeah.
Do you
that
think
Talia Goodman, our ace, women's basketball reporter on 3, the best reporter in the Goodman family, by the way.
Yeah.
True.
And I just assume people knew that. I'm happy you jumped in, Andy, and told people who we were talking about. So when can Arizona and Indiana people just like look at the SEC and be like, oh, you don't deserve to get in?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for like Arizona and Indiana is they're still living kind of in the past, right? They just are. I mean, Indiana even more so.
Schools that are looking their nose down at Indiana and football. That's
right. And it's like if you don't adapt and you don't think now, Indiana had NIL this year, like they had 5.2 million, so they have money. They just had a coach that to me was living in the past, and Mike Woodson was like coaching back in the 80s with 2 bigs, no shooting. Pieces didn't fit. Tommy Lloyd's got a good team. He's just got to do it in the NCAA tournament. They were bad to start the year. They've been great in their first year in the Big 12. They've been great. My take when they got Caleb Love was Caleb, and I still call him Carolina Caleb, because it's he giveth and he taketh away. And you have no idea as a coach what to expect from Caleb Love. again, he can take you to the championship game like he did with Carolina, and then shoot you right out of the game in the title game. So he's a roller coaster ride. He's talented. He's gotten better in some regards in making better decisions, but it's just hard to rely on guys like him and Wade Taylor, who's at Texas A&M, a similar type player. Those guys are just, again, you just never know what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm. So that Indiana job, Mike Woodson has said he's done at the end of the year. How good of a job? Well, right. Somebody told him to say that.
He never, yeah, exactly. He never really has said it. He's never actually said he's done.
He's gonna Dan Monson this thing and make the tournament. But it's sort of like the Brad Brownell, Kevin Keats, like right. But if this job does indeed open, which we expect it to, how good a job is Indiana right now?
I think it's really good now because you're following, the end of the Tom Crean era, which wasn't great, and Archie Miller era, not good, and Mike Woodson. So they haven't done anything in so long. Now's the time to me because the fans are hungry. The home court advantage is awesome at Assembly Hall. I've been so many times lately. I just think you need a coach that understands it. And, again, you're going to have money. You're going to have support. I know they've made some cuts in administration lately, but they're going to have money for basketball. Let's be honest. So I've said, and it's weird now, obviously I'm invested because the better Indiana is, the more I could see my daughter her senior year next year. So I've said publicly, I think they should go after Iowa State's TJ Otzelberger. His buyout went down from like $17 million a year ago to $4 million per my sources. He has done nothing but win at Iowa State, a very difficult place with a payroll of his NIL is like $2 million. And their top 10 team right now. So I think he fits. I just don't know if he'd take it because it is a fishbowl. Indiana basketball is a fishbowl and they're unforgiving, the fans, because the expectations still are, Final Four. And it's been so long since the Bob Knight days. And they're still living in those, the glory years back when Mike Woodson was a player, not a coach. So I like Otzelberger, Greg McDermott at Creighton. Again, don't know if he'd take it. He's 60 years old. But you're not hiring a coach anymore for like 10 years necessarily.
Yeah.
You're hiring a coach for like, can you get 5 good years? If you get 5 good years, and they can flip it quick too. That's the other thing with Greg McDermott. You come in, and as long as you know what your NIL is for the next couple of years, that's key. So I think those guys are certainly in the equation if they would take it.